Okay, moving back, Mike Downing again, and continuing to talk about free-floating drums and the principles behind them and going out. We have to be very, very well aware of marketing in the industry. Everything in the industry at this particular point is how good we can make you look behind a set of drums. Well, it's not how good we can make you look, it's how good we can make you sound, because they stick us in the back anyhow. Anybody who drives in with a van, they're going to make sit on the back of the stage. So we have to be careful of it, and lots of things are going around and they're marketing ploys. Example, one company came out with an attention rods. All right, attention rods on a drum were basically a 6mm with a 1/24 thread. I mean, it's 6mm thick and it's 124 threads per inch. So they made it from 124 to 132. Marketing, a fine tuning system. That's totally absurd. Matter of fact, as a drummer, it's insulting, because what's the difference now? To get to the same spot, you have to turn it 1 1/4 times instead of just one time to get to exactly the same tension that you need to tune your drum. The other thing about it is they've come out with everything in the world for shells. Shells should be moving backwards towards single ploys or thinner shells, not to these 15 shells on a snare drum. You can use different plies and different drums. For example, if you've got a small tom-tom like this, you definitely want a thinner shell in it. Why? Because it lacks the warmth. It lacks the fat sound to it. While when you get down to a 16-inch floor tom-tom, that drum itself has all the warmth in the world. You may want to put a thicker shell in it in order to get a little bit more crack out of that drum. Other things that happened with this drum when we did it is I found out that playing these drums became quite easy. The only way I could parallel it to it is you're running on a beach or you're running on a boardwalk. When you're running on a boardwalk, you're doing just fine. The minute you hit that sand, you gotta pick up that leg every single time for the next step. You've got no bounce. These drums, I told you I had become an observer. These drums I started to observe. Number one, they play like practice pads. They don't play like drums. So when you're double stroking around and you start to bounce that double stroke for your speed and you're going around a drum set, when you get to the tom-toms, including to the 16, you've got the same bounce that you do on your snare drums. They absolutely respond. And why is that? When we got and solved the mystery or the holy grail of drums for both drummers and drum manufacturers and created a free-floating drum, a whole bunch of other principles came into effect that I became an observer of. Number one, the action on the drum. Number two is that when you hit the upper head, you're not only playing off the tension of the upper head, but you're also playing off the tension of the lower head. That's another thing that was going on. Something else, the shell of the drum is now moving up and down between the two heads. I mean, literally oscillating back and forth when you're playing it, which gives you a lot of response on it, but it also gives you something different. It gives you a transmitted vibration. I don't know if you've ever seen the old trick where you lay 3 quarters on a table and they're all touching and you put your finger on the first one. You take the other one and you tap it, holding that middle quarter down as hard as you can, and the one on the other side will shoot off. That's transmitted vibration. So you've got transmitted vibration going on. The other thing that ended up happening goes all the way back to the days of the old Victrolas. You remember, you've probably seen them. He's got the little dog sitting there with the spots on, and he's listening to his master's voice on this wind-up machine with a gigantic cone coming out at you. Well, that's what happened over on these drums. The shell of the drum, when it starts to resonate, becomes, on that Victrola, the needle. It's picking up the vibration that the needle would pick up off the vinyl, off the record. Second thing that happens is that needle on a Victrola is glued to a little piece of mica. Mica is a very, very thin stone. It's also known as Eisenhower glass. They used to use it on the front of coal stoves in the old days. But that needle's glued to that. And the horn is your projection of the sound that is going. So you've got no electricity, no amplifier, a needle up against a piece of mica, vibrating, vibrating the mica and projecting the sound out. Well, that's what happened with the drums. The shell became the needle, and the upper and lower head became the mica, and it amplifies the timbre of the shell. That's why these drums are so big sounding. You put mallets on them, they sound like timpanis. You got the response on it. You've got one lug tuning going on with these drums. You got that if you set your decay and you tune the upper head of the drum, the lower head, the decay will move exactly proportionate to it. All of these are not something that I sat down and said, hey, you know, that man's right. If I built a drum like that, all of this would happen. No, I'm not that smart. I found out. I became an observer of what this man had come up with, and these are the only free-floating drums in the world. Be careful, others let's call them free-floating shells, single tension drum. Free-floating mounting system, yeah, rim mount system, but 3 requirements. Remember 1, 2, 3 of free-floating drums. And I hope this helps you, because an informed consumer is an intelligent consumer, and I'm not telling any drummer jokes here.